Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Fear Alchemist. My name is Ben, your host. I'm so excited that you're here. Before we get started with this episode, I must tell you a big announcement. I just launched a new group coaching program. So if you are a coach, a heart-centered leader, an online creator, a healer, a facilitator in any way, then this is for you. So if you feel like you're playing small, if you feel like you're procrastinating, if you feel like you're not fulfilling the potential, and you just feel stuck in sharing your gifts, you know you are here and meant for more, to help people, to truly be an example, to not live the 9-to-5 life. And you just know you're meant for more inside and you're not living up to that potential, then this is for you. So this is for coaches. This is for online creators. It could be for a parent, a conscious business leader. For whatever reason, you just know that avoiding your fear is keeping you small. You feel like no matter how hard you try, you're always held back. There's this invisible barrier in your way, and you know it's there. It's like you can feel it, but you can't see it. It's just like you keep coming up against this invisible wall. So if you want to learn more about this coaching program, click the link in the description. You can learn more about it there. There's so many beautiful testimonials for people who've already gone through this. It's quite the transformational program. But of course, I must tell you that it's not for everybody. This is for people who are truly willing to look at their limiting beliefs, who are brave enough to dive deep into the things that they've been avoiding for their whole life. This is for people who just have the will to truly explore the dark parts of themselves, and you're willing to hold yourself accountable. So I'd love to see you there. If you want to learn more, click the link in the description, and you can also book a discovery call with me. So if you look through the page, you feel like, okay, I'm not quite sure, I'm ready to pull the trigger, but there's still some questions. You can also book a discovery call with me. Just scroll to the bottom of the page, review all the information on there, and I'd love to see you there with an incredible group of people. It is limited spots. So if you hear this, if you watch this and you're ready to sign up, you feel like this is for you, you feel like you're ready to blast off in your business, and you're ready to take all those ideas, those dreams that you've been pushing to the side and trying to be realistic and say, when everything lines up, when I have this much money saved, whatever the thing is you've been waiting to do, it's time. It's time to share your gift. It's time to stop playing small. Let's freaking do this. All right, y'all. Please enjoy this episode. And if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, make sure you rate and review so more people can be recommended this amazing knowledge from the heart. Thank you all for being here. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Fear Alchemist. I have the dude, the myth, how would you... I was trying to think of all the words to explain you, but you need no explanation. There is no box for James. So James, thank you for being here, good sir.
Hey Ben, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here and chat with you today.
When people ask you like on the street, how do you introduce yourself when they say, yo, like what do you do?
I don't know. I hate that question so much. Like I've honestly evaded sometimes. Like I've said like I'm a trapeze artist or something like completely random, just because like I don't have a certain box. I mean, writer would be the number one thing that I would go back to, just because that's my main practice and my main form of creative expression. I also am an artist, a poet, a podcaster. I kind of, anything in the realm of creativity is something that I care deeply about. And for me, that is most frequently expressed through writing. So that's what I would say to most succinctly.
I love it. And that's like, honestly, dude, I'm getting chills. Like why I was really excited to talk to you is because there's no, like people obviously on Instagram are like, oh, the meme guy. Oh, it's 222. Shout out. Numerology. We're just talking about this. Right?
88222. That's right.
But just like, I could just tell like creativity is like surging through you. And so I definitely want to dive into the blocks or the resistances and the fears, of course, of like how you've opened that portal and expression.
Yeah.
But the question I was about to ask you before we started recording, and I was like, oh, we got to make sure I ask this, is through your interactions, through clients or your meme school, all these different things that you do just online, how often does like fear come up for people, whether they know it or not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in any resistance, whether we trace it back to fear or not, any resistance or blockage or stuck energy can be traced back to some kind of fear.
Amen.
I think.
I concur.
Because like creativity is not does not typically induce a sense of conscious fear, right? It's like it might induce a sense of not sure where to start, not having confidence in your own abilities, measuring yourself up against others, competition and comparison, and creative block and things like that. But a lot of that is fear of being seen, or fear of being rejected, or fear of not being good enough. So yeah, it's funny how this happens in a lot of places and a lot of different fields. But even when I was working with corporate clients back in my past life as a brand strategist in advertising agencies, I'd be meeting with CEOs and CMOs and executive teams and corporations, and like we're not there to discuss fear. We're there to discuss like creative projects and like building their business. But I learned early on that like, oh, there's a certain amount of therapy involved in this job where I'm helping these people realize where their blocks are and where there's fear inside this organization.
Wow.
And I actually like treated it as being a bit of like a healer, like in the creative corporate sense, where I was going into these companies to with the mindset of a healer to see what problems that we're dealing with here and how we can use creativity as a solution to help not only the business but the people involved, because every business is really just human beings behind the scenes. So definitely like addressing the core issues of like fear and just the interpersonal dynamics really helped even my career as a brand strategist. So it's always there in the background,
Dude, this is cool. So I was listening to a few of the podcasts you've been on. I know I'm good friends with Hallie, so I know you've been on hers. And
love Hallie, yeah.
But this came up earlier, and I feel like it's gonna somehow tie into all of this of like, so was the brand strategist, is that what you were doing before full-time writing and creating, or?
Yeah, that's right. I had a 10-year career in advertising. First as a graphic designer. I went to art school and I kind of, I was an art kid and a creative kid, and I went to art school, and I ended up like sneaking into the business world through the back door as a graphic designer. So I was like working for like advertising agencies doing design. And then I kind of got bored with that. And then I pivoted into being a brand strategist, which is someone who like I would help companies with, things like naming and messaging and like positioning and marketing campaigns and just things like that to bring the brand to life. Yeah. And I did that in Madison Avenue in New York City for like 8 years.
Dang, dude. So it's like, of course, everything happens perfectly, right? And it's like you're literally being groomed for what you're doing right now. Is like, did you have to like at a point, was there a point of like, okay, I'm going all in, or did it happen gradually for you?
Going all in into what?
Like your calling, your business, your creative works before you left the corporate world?
It was really gradual. So, I mean, I published my first book in 2017 while I was deep in the advertising world. Mm-hmm. So I was writing every morning, every night for, years while working full time at like a demanding job. So I was always, it was very gradual. And then I started a podcast while I was still working. in advertising. I started, making memes and growing my following online and building up a foundation. And then so many big corporations were going through, so many different restructurings during the COVID times, and my particular corporation was acquired by a big technology company, and the whole division that I oversaw was phased out of the company.
Wow!
So I was basically, it was just like perfect timing because I had built up my own foundation, and it's so hard to leave a job sometimes, especially when you're a steady regular paycheck, that it's something that comes easily to you, is so that security is hard to walk away from. And luckily I didn't have to. The decision was the decision was made for me.
Yeah.
And speaking of fear, that there's all kinds of, and that's happened to me before, or suddenly I've been fired, or I've, big things have happened where it seems like I don't know how to navigate this. And it took me a little while to kind of lean into, monetizing the foundation that I had already established. But yeah, here we are. And like you said, it really is a matter of leveraging the skills that I learned in that world, because even creativity, working in it's a very demanding profession when you have to have client deadlines right around the corner every week, and you can't tell your clients that you weren't feeling inspired
Yeah.
or that you had writer's block, because they paid good money, and that's not an excuse in that world, right? So I don't have writer's block because I have gone through pretty strong creative conditioning to show up, every day, every week, and just find a way. And
Wow.
Not to overthink things, but just to know when things are good enough, when to bring in help when you need support, make things presentable. And yeah, so now that has made me a better writer. That's made me a better meme artist. And now I can apply those same lessons I learned working with corporate clients to working with my individual one-on-one clients, to help people that I care for and believe in, bring their brands to life and create compelling content, and to help grow their businesses, which is a million times more fulfilling than working for a big faceless corporation.
Dude, this is so cool. So it's there's a few things I want to go back to. So one, you said writer's block. You don't feel that anymore, just because it's you've done it so much. So
I don't remember, to be honest, I don't remember ever feeling writer's block. There is times when I'm not inspired, right? I kind of let it flow. If it doesn't flow, that's fine. I don't call that writer's block. It's just nothing's really, the channel is a little cloudy today, or just today is chill, and you don't need to do anything. But more often than not, my creativity flows pretty effortlessly. I never want to write something and can't. There are times when I just maybe don't want to, or like I said, nothing shows up, but I don't consider that being stuck. I just consider it to be well, the muse is on taking a day off.
I love that, dude. Instead of just beating yourself up, telling you suck or something.
Yeah, no, creativity should be easy. I was just writing something today. So I'm working on a book about creativity, and I wrote a little section based on one of my favorite poets is Charles Bukowski, and he has a very simple epitaph on his gravestone. It just says, "Don't try." And it's okay, well, that can be interpreted a couple ways. He doesn't mean be apathetic, don't try, it's not worth it. He means don't force it, let it flow. Does a tree doesn't try to grow branches, the cloud doesn't try to rain. These things just happen because that is the dharma of the being to do these things. So if you're in your dharma and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you let it flow, like you won't have to force it. You won't have to try. It's going to be just a natural expression of your being.
Dude, I just got chills. That was so good. You definitely have to put, it's probably already an essence in your book, but like, so, okay, this is really good because it's like, like say, so go back to the time, right, where the decision's made for you to leave your job. And it's like, you can say you were in your dharma in a way, right? In that corporate world-ish, like in the area of it. And then, you know, this blessing happens, but you still had to lean into it instead of going to get another job.
Yes.
So like for you, and then you talked about there was resistance in leading to the monetization of it. How did you know like this was the time to just, to like go all in, to lean into that feeling?
Because I just couldn't bear it. You know, I think that, you know, we have different phases in our life that support us where we are. And like, it's like a relationship. Like, you know, I've had many relationships and almost all of them, except for the one that I have now, didn't last. You know what I mean? Like they're like the majority, like almost all of my relationships didn't last, all except for one. You know, so that doesn't mean those relationships were a failure. It just means that they were like, we have like little boats that will take us where we need to go. And then once we've crossed the river, then we have to get out and keep walking. You know what I'm saying? Like everything comes in our life to serve us for a reason, for a particular period of time, whether that's a job or a relationship. So that job served me for a while because it, you know, supported me, allowed me to be creative, allowed me to just like try a lot of new things and, you know, grow skills. But it reached the point where that particular profession was no longer serving me. You know, it had expired its usefulness to my life, and it was becoming a burden because I had a bigger. It took me a while to, like, speaking of fear, like there's a lot of and this happens with like people that are stuck between two worlds. Like, oh, they have maybe a corporate world and then they have like a personal world or a passion world, and those two are not able to be reconciled necessarily. Like, oh, how far can I go with my own message online as a writer and as a teacher and as an artist, while not like stirring the pot too much in my corporate world? Like, can I talk about psychedelics? Like, how deep can I go with spirituality? You know, like how much is okay? And I was always like, you know, just like testing that line. Like I remember I got an article published on a big website about my first mushroom experience. And that website had like great SEO. So like if you searched my name online, that's the first thing that would come up. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if this is good. Like that was like, I was like, oh, this is like, I could lose my job for this or something like that, right? So I actually went to the website and had them take my name out of the article. So there was like little things like not being able to express yourself fully. But it got to the point where it's like, I could not hold back anymore. Like to not just like be fully myself and offer my, you know, art and message to the world unfiltered. It just wasn't an option anymore. So like I was a little bit tempted to look for other jobs, but at the end of the day, it didn't feel right in my gut and I just wouldn't let myself do it. So I just leaned totally into that, you know, place of uncertainty and trust, you know, when I didn't know where the money was going to come from. And just, you know, believe something with such conviction where you'll find a way and you'll find people to help support you in that journey.
Dang, dude, I love this. Thank you for sharing. It's like, I resonate so hard because I had a similar thing where it's just like, it was undeniable, like in your body. And it's like I remember for me, it was like, I was literally like repelled. Like I could not go into the office anymore. It was like I felt like like two charges of the same magnet trying to be put together.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, and so it was like, it sounds like it was similar to you where of course there's a choice, but it was just like what you said, like it was now a burden.
Yeah, I had to listen to what my body was telling me, and it was like no, and so you have to trust yourself and your your purpose here on Earth at the end of the day. So
Yeah, dude, and I'm a huge proponent like this. I don't even like the whole Dharma thing, right? And it's like being in that Dharma of what you said of like being in that thing, and then it happens like the tree, right? The tree doesn't try and grow. The cloud doesn't try and rain. It just is like it's a fucking cloud, so it does. It's like, and that's so potent. Like I love that whole thing. So back as your account has started, maybe when it started growing, was there a point where I was just like, oh shit, like this is really taking off?
Well, yeah, it initially grew a little bit when I put out my first book. And then, but really it was when I started making memes. And coincidentally, like, and I mean like to the day that corresponds to when I moved to Austin.
Of course.
Like it was like night and day. Like I started making memes right when I moved here, like without any preconceived ideas of doing that. And that's also not only making memes, but posting on like a regular basis. So what I guess the backstory for that kind of is I was working on a book. I have a mostly finished book that is kind of autobiographical fiction, and my agent was looking it over, and I was and am really excited about this book. And I put years of writing into it, and my agent was like, "Well, the publishing world is very segmented and compartmentalized, and it's kind of like, oh, if you're a nonfiction writer, they don't like you putting out a novel because it's like that's not what you're known for." So there is a lot of like putting people in boxes in the mainstream publishing world. So she didn't want to pitch my book to publishers. So I was like really disappointed because I had been working on that book every single morning, and I was really happy with it. And then she's like, "Yeah, I just don't think it's the right time to pitch a novel." So I was like stuck. Like not only was I disappointed because it wasn't going to come out, but I didn't have that to work on anymore every morning anymore, because like I was like that this is like it's not the right time for this project. So I thought, well, what if I took that? And what sucks about writing a book is that you spend years on it before anyone ever sees it.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine that delayed gratification where it's like you might, like, how many times I've sat down by myself and written something that I think is just like, I'm so happy about. And like, literally there's no one around to like celebrate with or to like see it or give you validation. It's just like, I wrote the best thing in my life and absolutely nobody knows and nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lonely kind of like existence to write long form books. So I thought, well, what if I use that same creative energy every morning to make things that I could share immediately? And then I thought of like memes, and I thought of just really like creating a new, like making art out of social media content. So that's kind of what I did. I started just redirecting my energy, and that led to a lot of experimentation with the format of like Instagram. And I started to learn like what kind of things get shared, what kind of things go viral. And that really just like led me to making more and more memes. And it really took off pretty much immediately when I started doing that.
Dang, dude. So there's so many questions popping up for you. Like, I want to come back to where I wanted to go with that is like, maybe because you talked about the fear of being seen or the visibility or stuff like that. So I want to ask about when it started to grow. Did you feel that pressure? But quickly, do you feel worried about or care about like people copying you at all, like as a creative?
No, because you can't. I mean, if you copy someone, it's not going to have the same. You can't copy the spirit of someone's work. Like you can copy someone, but like if it's not like people can, I think people can see through it if it's artificial. And also, I mean, copying is a lot of ways, right? Like people post my stuff without crediting me a lot. So that happens, and that's part of the territory. That's part of the meme culture.
Yeah.
But also memes are like, I can't be too protective of my work because the whole idea of memes is based in the idea of replication. So you don't like memes are all copied. Like you don't copy a meme. Like you don't copy someone's specific message, but all meme artists are sharing and borrowing imagery and trends with each other. So the art of memetics is very decentralized and very collaborative and very adaptive. So in that sense, it's meant to be copied. So I can't be too protective of that particular kind of work.
That's cool, dude. I mean, and that even goes back to like the fear thing too, right? Because usually if I feel protective of it, is right, it's like, well, I probably won't get credit for it. And then what else does that rabbit hole lead down? So that's interesting. How much do you worry about or think about the algorithm or like, this is going to work, this doesn't work? How, even in the meme school versus just like being yourself versus, because I think there's a mix of like utilizing it versus also just being yourself and not trying to just like fit everything in it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a couple things there. I mean, I think it's smart to work with the algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, the latest Instagram algorithm is very friendly to videos and reels. So, and there's a lot of complaining about that.
Mm-hmm.
But and yeah, it's hurt some of my engagement as well. But I kind of thought like I always want to. I really think that these tools and technology help inform art. Art is kind of uses the tools that are available to it, and that includes algorithms, right? And that includes Instagram wants to be a video platform. Well, let's play around with that. Let's see if I can work with that and how I can leverage that particular tool to my advantage. So I've been leaning into that and making reels and having fun with it. And it's really unlocked a whole different dimension to my work. So yeah, I kind of play with the algorithm in that sense. But also there's the element of what my audience responds to. So it's not really the algorithm. It's more like there are certain things that I know my audience will respond to more than others. And I both cater to that and I don't. Mm-hmm. Like I have my audience in mind, like in the subconscious somewhere back there when I'm making things. And it's like, oh, this is the kind of thing that they're hungry for right now. This is the kind of thing they want to hear. It's almost like I'm working for them. You know what I mean? Like there's a bunch of people that follow me and like, I could be like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I do from that also, but also it's like, oh, they want to hear from me. And I'm to a certain degree, I am working for them. So I try to like see what they need and see what messages that I can put out that they're going to find peace in, they're going to find humor in, they're going to find some element of healing in. So it's very much, that's what's great about social media is it is art that is a direct two-way dialogue with your audience and the creator. So there are some things that like, I'm like, they're probably not going to like this one, but I think it's hilarious. And some people are going to love it. And I don't like conform my work to, to please any particular people or groups, but it is just, it's helpful to have that collaboration, that dialogue.
Dude, I appreciate that. And it's, just to echo that, I forgot what music artist it was, but what they said was like, is essentially, obviously, if you're a musician and you tour, dozens or hundreds of times a year, and then it's like you have to play that same hit song that everybody loves over and over and over and over. I heard it like, they got asked a question like, do you ever get sick of it? And they're like, no, like, I love it because my job isn't for me, it's for them.
Totally.
Right? It's like, I'm here because of them. It's like, I'm not playing for myself, I'm playing for them. So I'm going to play the hell out of this song every time,
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. It's like that because they're hearing it for the first time. So, yeah, I just think you should be, artists should be at least a little bit mindful of their audience and like make things, accessible to in certain ways and challenging in other ways. It's like, art doesn't exist in a bubble.
I love that, dude. Like it's both hand.
Oh yeah, I'll provoke my audience as well. Like they hate when I, a lot of my audience is kind of the quote unquote spiritual community.
Yeah.
And like the spiritual community is like really, strangely, afraid of technology. It's like speaking of fears and like AI and VR and stuff. So like I recently like gave a talk at Meta and I in the past I did like a small partnership with a VR app and like they they hate it. They hate that, but I don't care because like I think that's like somewhere where I can like poke and provoke and maybe like help her transform fear around certain things.
I love that, dude. Yeah, like, and that's part of the job too, right? Is to like challenge and to open, hopefully, the minds and hearts of people. So, shifting slightly back to that moment of when you were watching this grow more quickly than you were used to. Were there any feelings like, oh, like this is exactly what I asked for, but I'm also terrified?
At that point, no, because I had already been publishing work and I was already like a published author. And like, so like it really, my success happened so gradually that it was just all happened very naturally. And there was no moment where it was like too much. Like I always just, I just said that I post with my audience in mind, but I also like, I just share what I like, and that never changes. I just I don't know. I've always just been I've been writing for so long, and I've been creating for so long that I'm not self-conscious with that. I mean, there's like I'm more self-conscious with my podcast, for example. Like for me, the podcast is like an area of like slight resistance because communicating with art and with my written word, that's just very easy for me. It's become more of a growth area to communicate with my real voice. So I've had a lot of podcasts that I've done over the past year. I have my own podcast, and every time that is like a growth opportunity to get more comfortable expressing myself with my real voice. As well as here in Austin, I have a monthly open mic night called Sunflower Club, which I host. And it's not even about me. It's about the group and letting other people share. But just to host and to be there in person and to like, speak to large groups like that. Again, that's an area where I have to kind of like face a little bit of fear every single time I do it. And then every time I grow a little bit and get a little more comfortable. So I guess now my goal is to get to the point with public speaking and podcasts and hosting, get to the same level of comfort in that area that I already have with my written word.
I love this, dude. And like, where do you feel stretched? Is it like, because you're just using your voice? Is it like, because obviously you're being seen through your written verb, but like, I guess when you're speaking, you don't have time to edit. Especially
that's
when you're
a big
live.
part of it.
Okay.
That's a big part of it. Because when you're writing, like writers can afford to be a perfectionist because they can just polish and make it all seem so great. So like when I first started doing podcasts, and I even did like a really short-lived like YouTube video series. Like this is like back when my first book came out.
Which was what year?
2017.
17. Okay, yeah.
So like I did some YouTube videos, and they were completely scripted. I literally had a piece of paper above the computer that I was reading from and pretend and like hoping like people wouldn't notice. But of course you notice because it just comes across as like is just like unauthentic, and you can just tell that it's not spontaneous. And my early podcasts were very much, I had notes of what I wanted to say, and I wanted to make sure, and that was taking me out of the present moment because I wanted to make sure I said the right thing, because I wanted it to, I wanted that same control that I had over writing, and I didn't have that control. So I really just realized I needed to give that up. Like I decided after a few times doing that, I was like, I'm not going to grow doing this. I need to just face the discomfort and just speak from the heart. So instead of preparing with notes and like talking points, I would just spend 10 minutes in meditation before the podcast just to clear my channel and just be like, let whatever's going to come through, let it come through and just go with it. And that was, really scary at first. And it still is scary, but I've gotten more comfortable with that fear where it doesn't bother me or I don't have to think about it much anymore.
Dang, dude. Thank you for sharing that. It's like, I'm like surging with chills, dude. It's kind of crazy this whole time. I'm not telling you all the times I'm getting chills, but I'm like, dude, he's speaking some truth. So it's like, and that's something I so deeply believe in, right? Is like, it's getting comfortable with it and familiar with it. It's like, because so many people run away from it and that just makes it worse, right? If you run away from any feeling, it's just going to magnify itself.
Definitely.
Especially with fear, though. It's like, right, is when it's literally the function of fear is to keep you alive. And so it's like, that's a pretty big one. So like for you, so you feel these feelings, like these scary moments, this resistance, the worry, like whether it's in this setting or other settings, how have you typically, do you just do it? Is that how it works for you? It sounds like you meditate. What other settings and practices do you have? Or so what settings may it come up in, or just what other practices do you do to like feel it and transmute it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's someone gave me a great piece of advice once, and this was another story of fear that I faced when I first moved to New York City.
How old were you?
I just turned 30.
Cool.
And so I had just moved to New York City, and I was like, didn't have a job, and I was like struggling to like, just get grounded and have a home and life there. And then Hurricane Sandy hit New York City and destroyed the apartment that I had just signed a lease on.
Wow.
So I was suddenly like, I was broke, unemployed, and now I'm homeless. And that was a time of great uncertainty. And my buddy Jake, who I was going to move in with, we both became homeless. We ended up like, he knew a guy in this small island in the Caribbean called Culebra who had this little like empty like beach cottage. And he's like, well, we can go stay in Culebra. And it's like, what? Like, I just moved to New York City and now I'm going to be like on some deserted island. Like
the complete opposite.
Complete opposite. And I was like, it was like, I didn't know what, how to proceed or like what was going on. And it was a lot of uncertainty. And my buddy told me, he suggested like to lean into the uncertainty, right? Instead of resisting it. No, the uncertainty is a portal. Like the unknown is a portal to a greater unknown. like to a greater known, that is. Like we have a small comfort zone. It's relative in size, but let's just say we all have like a small comfort zone. The only way to expand that comfort zone is to go into the unknown. It's the only way to do it. So that particular experience, becoming homeless in New York, like really taught me that, oh, the unknown is a portal to a greater known. And I've just learned to gradually trust that. So, I mean, I've got all kinds of grounding practices, from meditation to breath work to yoga to sunbathing. Other forms of exercise are always helpful. But for me, it always comes back to like just that inner trust, trusting the universe, trusting our own life path, and knowing that the journey of life is a journey into the unknown. And that's the point. And I've had enough failures. I've had enough, experiences where was completely uncertain. And whenever I've gone through those times in my life, I've always emerged in a completely new place with a bigger comfort zone and, fully transformed. So now I just know like, oh, I'm going into another portal of uncertainty. Well, this is going to lead me into further expansion. And it's just become more and more about trusting where that's going to take me.
Damn, dude. You're spitting some bars right now, dude. Like that really is like, and I was just talking about this with my partner, Belle, this morning. She and I, right, of like the unknown is where creation lives.
100%.
Right? Like that is only possibility, because you were talking about perfection and control, right? Is like, that's essentially what is, right? Because that's all related to fear as well. But like, if you want to create something new or experience something new or whatever, is like the unknown is the only place where that is.
Yeah, you can't make any piece of art is a journey into the unknown, because if it was already known, that art would already exist.
Yeah.
And if you stick too close to what's already been done, you're not going to create anything new either, or you're not going to create anything inspired. I often think of the writing process or the creative process as like, it's like you have to like jump into a hole and then like dig your way out onto the other side. So it's completely about surrendering to that unknown and just like finding your way with curiosity and with experimentation and playfulness, and just enjoying the waves and riding the waves and flowing with them, and letting that, dancing with the uncertainty instead of being paralyzed by it.
Dude, I love this. It's like, and with I mean, that's a pretty big thing, right? Like being homeless in New York after a hurricane and you just moved there. That's like it. And it's cool because you've had, like, what I feel from you is that you, and maybe just in this moment, but you don't, it seems like fear doesn't like grip you, because it feels like you've turned it to a friend essentially.
100%. Like you just said, that was a big deal to be homeless in New York City. Well, it was that experience of going to Culebra and like having nowhere to go and having nowhere to run and being alone with my own mind, that I started to like realize the difference between my ego and my intuition. And it really allowed me to kind of navigate my own mind. And it was through that experience that my first book, Shit Your Ego Says, came about. So like literally this terrible thing, being homeless on this island, was the direct pathway to launching my career as an author.
Dude, that's crazy. I didn't know that. So literally that's where the creation process started, is on the island?
100%.
Bro.
So what I'm saying is like people need to like, no, not only is uncertainty safe and like not something to be afraid of, like it is your friend, it is your ally, it is your guide. Like,
yes, you
need to like, the world is changing like really rapidly, and the whole world is like moving into the great unknown. And it's like, if we're still clinging to, the ideas that we're attached to, if we're still clinging to the old versions of ourselves, like we are not going to be able to keep up with the transformations that are happening in the world. So it's like, not only is it not something to be afraid of. It definitely is. Like I believe in like baptizing ourselves in the fire of change.
Mm.
We have to like be comfortable letting our old selves die if we're going to step into a new, more authentic version of ourselves. That is the growth process. It's continuous death and rebirth. And those are the portals of uncertainty that lead to transformation.
I love this, dude. It's like, and speaking of like letting go, and so just like I have some experience. I used to be in hip hop music in my early 20s. Like we did some cool stuff, just like touring or whatever. And so like I remember, and I've heard other artists say this, is like having to kill your own child, right? Of like you have this favorite track or, like this creation. Like, what is your experience in like letting go of that identity or that ego or just stuff that you love, but for whatever, just it's so hard, but it's like holding on is so much harder than letting go.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's important to like, all right. It's important to understand that when we let go of something that's no longer serving us, it is to make space for something that's greater. Right. So like we might not want to let go because we all have attachments. But it's like, if you don't let go of, your hands need to be full in order for you to receive something.
Empty.
Right. Your hands need to be empty in order to have space to receive something. So if we're holding on to the people that we used to be, or the things that we used to love, or even old relationships that are no longer serving us, we're not going to have the space to receive something that's even better. So yeah, letting go. I'm a big fan of like continuously like purging my belongings, like going through my old clothes and seeing what no longer is like inspiring to me and getting rid of it. Going through and just cleaning up clutter. It's like always kind of cleaning out what feels stuck, what feels stagnant, what feels uninspiring, to make room for things that are, going to serve us moving forward.
And that's beautifully said. Do you ever get disappointed if something doesn't like hit or isn't received well?
You mean like on social media?
Anything.
Or just
anything.
Like, not really, because, you can't get caught up in the results. Yeah, sure. I wish everything that I posted would go viral. And and like, in like secretly, I kind of think that everything I post should go viral, right? Actually, like, come on, this is like a banger. Like, come on, people.
Yeah.
But there are just lots of factors. I mean, like, there's just like the algorithm. It's like, just when people are scrolling online, are they really, how much are they really paying attention? Are the people are just scrolling, mindlessly sometimes. And a lot of, it's not the scale, because there are so many, if you measure yourself by external circumstances, you're just playing a losing game, because, just the whole world we live in with like just the attention economy is so intense and demanding. And the things that are like really, truly successful in our world at this point are things that are, for the most part, have a large institutional apparatus supporting them. Like, if you want to get on, a great New York Times book review, if you want to get a movie in theaters, like, this is not about like one individual who is talented that's having this reception. This is an institutional like apparatus that is like propping up, certain people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if we as individual artists and creators and entrepreneurs are comparing ourselves to like the megastars of the world, it's just a losing game. It's not even the same ballpark. So I'm more interested in making deep connections with a loyal tribe, and knowing, trying to make things that will stand the test of time. I mean, even like there are a million examples from art. Like one of the greatest American rock bands of all time is the Velvet Underground, who was making music in the 1960s, and they were like virtually unknown. They never played a big arena. They never toured the world. They were like a dirty garage band in New York City that was playing these like niche shows in these like relatively small venues, and then they broke up after 3 albums, and they never made a splash commercially. But it was said that every single person who listened to the Velvet Underground ended up creating their own bands that were influenced by the Velvet Underground, and that sound caught on in the culture, and it spread, and it directly led to things like punk rock music and things like David Bowie's music. So they weren't a huge commercial success, but now in hindsight, they've become one of the most acclaimed and respected bands ever, because what they did was like original and unique, and despite like the lack of initial attention.
Dude, this is really cool. So like the question that came up when I was listening to that for you is, do you care about like recognition or quote unquote success? Like if you were the Velvet Underground, no one knows about you, but at the same time is like you're pivotal, or maybe you're not, just whatever scenario, right? Is like to you, like how does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, of course, like, I'm human, and I still have an ego, right? So like,
yeah,
it depends on the part of me you're talking to. Like, of course I want, well, I don't want like big, massive, like, I don't want to be a celebrity. Like that's crazy. That's completely unnatural and unsustainable. And that sounds like a nightmare. And I really think that we're moving away from celebrity culture as a civilization. Like, when you look at things like Hollywood, like they don't carry nearly the impact that they once did, because it's a royal caste essentially that was ruling over us in the form of media and attention. So that's just not a desirable goal, and luckily, I really think that we're phasing that out of our culture because it's just not authentic. Having said that, yes, of course, I'd still want my books to be read, my posts to be shared, etc. I still have that ego part of me, but no, I mean, there are a million things. It's like, it's also like, batting average. Like you want to just, there's always the next swing at bat. And that's what's great about social media. It's like, oh, you can post every day, and yeah, like it's disposable in a way. It's still art. It's still art, but it's like you can have another swing at bat tomorrow, and it's just like keep showing up and doing it. And it's like, if you get too caught up in the end results and worrying about the end results, you're just you're hurting your own process. I rather just focus on my process, keep making stuff, keep putting it out, and just letting the results fall where they may.
And this is a cheesy question that I've never asked, because it is such a plain question. like because it has to do with your younger self, but maybe not advice you'd give your younger self. It could be, but just for the people who are like truly starting, maybe early on in the process, because obviously social media, people are definitely comparing themselves to you, no doubt, right? So it's someone early on in the process of like, damn, like I want to be where like James is, like they don't, hopefully listening to this point, they see there's a huge process that they need to, get laid off in New York and be homeless before they can, before this all happens.
Right.
But what is your just words of wisdom, or just feeling, it doesn't have to be advice necessarily, but just something from the heart?
Yeah, it's really about finding your own way, because I learned from a lot of artists that came before me. Bob Dylan and Walt Whitman and Allen Ginsberg and Patti Smith and Joan Didion. And the list goes on and on. But what I do is just completely unique to me. It's like it's my art has become really just a kind of an unfiltered expression of my spirit. It's just like it's coming out very naturally. So I learned from a lot of other artists, but then I kind of like found a way to combine it all in my own language. So it's really like you can learn from things that I do, but it's really about finding your own way. And that's again why I'm not worried about people copying me, because you can't copy someone successfully. You just can't. A facsimile of something is not compelling, right? So if you want to do something compelling, you need to go on your own journey, and you need to find your own influences, and you need to put all those recipes together inside of yourself and see what comes out. And it's got to be true to you. And it's going to be different for every single person.
Exactly. And that's what's dope though, right? Is like, that's why everybody can thrive. It's because like
we all have a different role. We all have a different purpose. We all have a different, role in the community.
Dude, and it's funny, kind of like what you said. I remember years ago, I was comparing myself to a friend. Like, he won the Amazing Race. He was a professional cycler. He like he's like a cancer survivor and all these things. And I remember like, man, like I wish I had a story like that. And as soon as I asked, stuff started happening. Like, of course I already had a journey before that, but like, it was kind of like dark night of the soul, just like the story had begun. But it's true just from your experience of like, it really does take like experience to be creative.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you have to get lost and then to find your way home. That's like the biggest thing. You have to be willing to go out into the world, get so lost that you have no idea, how you're going to get back, and then, blindfolded, keep putting one foot in front of the other until you find your own way, your own rhythm, your own style, your own message. And ultimately finding your way back home.
Bro, like it seems like you get this so naturally. It's just like, yeah, dude, like that's just how it is. It seems like one thing I just want to reflect is like, it seems like you don't, similar to the like uncertainty and fear thing, you don't fight against the universe, it feels like.
Oh, well, I mean, why? That's talk about a losing battle. Why are you going to fight against the universe? Who's going to win? That's like a meme, like me versus the universe. Like, who's going to win?
Maybe you should. I'm
not going to fight against the universe. No, thank you. That's just a
really
recipe for disaster.
That's really what so many of us do, like myself included, is like, I don't like it like this. So I'm going to literally choose suffering because I don't agree with what's happened or happening, that I have no control over.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm not saying that I'm always happy or always satisfied, for sure. No, but yeah, as a guiding principle, I think it's helpful to believe that things happen for us, not to us. And, I really think that, consciousness itself exists on a more fundamental level of reality than time and space and matter. Okay. So that basic concept gets interpreted into things like, oh, your thoughts create your own reality, etc., which can be problematic messages for a lot of people, right? But I do believe that consciousness has a direct impact on the reality that we experience, like your perception, how you perceive things, how you take things. It impacts the outcome in a lot of ways, or our experience of the outcome, certainly. So I really think it's helpful just to see the world not as something that is happening to us, but happening for us, and something that we are in a certain way self-generating.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get all the lessons and the challenges that we need in order to facilitate our growth.
Yeah, we're definitely
So
participating in it.
we're definitely participating in it. So yeah, the universe is there to guide us, and everything you don't like is an oracle to help teach you.
Mm. Have you
You
said that line
know,
before? That's really good.
I've never said that before.
Everything you don't like is an oracle trained to teach you.
Yeah, everything you don't like is an oracle to teach you and to show you the way.
Bro, that's good. Remember that one. That's really good. Like James, this is really cool, dude. Like, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, we definitely went across the board. Do you have any? I'd love to know. I don't feel super called to like dive super deep into, because sometimes on the podcast we do, it's actually pretty cool. And I love it that like we actually have like breakthroughs where people are like, actually last week I talked to someone, she's really, really cool, like big YouTuber, and she's writing a book actually. I think you guys would, do you know Lior Alexandra by chance?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, she reposts your stuff.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, Lior is amazing. And so essentially she's writing this beautiful book and she was having resistance to it. And like we like went through it. And it was so like, I love that stuff, but at the same time, I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to fight against the universe. But with that said, is there anything that like you want to explore or anything like that?
Honestly, man, I am like I'm just like I honestly feel really blessed to be in a place of flow right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I
do.
feel really blessed to be in a place of flow, and I'm grateful for that. And I definitely have fears that are there, and we all have pain in certain ways, but um I think I'd rather dwell in the gratitude of where I am than trying to explore where I'm not
I love that, bro.
at this particular moment.
That's so, ooh, I just got more chills. Like, because again, right, sometimes we unnecessarily create that suffering because it's like, we need to do more healing or we need to improve more. It's like, no, bro, I'm in a freaking amazing spot. So let's freaking celebrate. I celebrate you right now.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you mind like actually ending on that? Like how important it is as a creative and writer to an artist to celebrate yourself? Because it seems, because there's the like the trope or whatever, right? Of like starving artists or just like you have to be in pain to be an artist, right? Like you have to, like all that stuff. Like how important is celebrating and like appreciating for you as an artist?
Yeah. That's a little tough, to be honest. I feel like I'm not I feel like my art is, I love doing it and I enjoy doing it, but I also feel like it's kind of a service. And I also don't really have a choice to do it. It's kind of like the job I was assigned. And it's like, I do love the job, but it's also still a job. And I have a hard time celebrating because I never feel done. Right.
Yeah.
Because like there's always a next project, there's always next idea. And I love that. That's not a lack thing. It's just like I'm always excited about what comes next. So I have a hard time celebrating myself, even like for birthdays. Like I'm like, I'd rather just like not celebrate my birthday. It's like not that big of a deal. I turn another year, yay. Or even like I had a book release party for my last book, and that was I'm glad I did it, but it doesn't come natural to me to like celebrate my work. So I should get better at that. But like I said, for me, it's about service and doing the work, and just kind of like there's always the next thing to do. And I'm always kind of like in that place of creation. Sorry, my dogs are barking.
It's all good. They're celebrating for you.
They're well, speaking of fear, they've manufactured an idea of the mailman being something to be afraid of, even though he's probably delivering them treats or dog food. They still have this innate fear to be afraid of people coming to the door, and they need to work on that.
You know what's funny? That probably is like a legit like if God is looking down at us, it's probably almost like a similar thing. Like he's giving us things at our front door that we're like barking at. And it's like, yo, if you would just open the box, open the door.
Yeah. This is no, I've been working on this. I want to go on this, but I haven't done it yet. But I think it's a great metaphor. It's like so many times where or like the other day, it was raining and Austin really needed the rain. And my dog Pepper was just shivering because she was afraid of the storm outside. And it's like she has no idea that what's happening outside is very helpful, very needed, and very good. But she's afraid of it because she doesn't get what's happening. So I think that's a great metaphor for our own lives when like we can be afraid of things that are happening again for us, not to us. But we're shivering because we don't quite understand the full picture of what's happening.
I love that, dude. It's like, and for us, not just for us individually, but for everybody, which includes us as well.
Totally.
I love that, bro. Is there any, what we got to do with the podcast thing, got to make sure people know where to find you and engage and connect with you.
The easiest way is my Instagram at Words Are Vibrations. And the link in my bio, you can check out my books. You can check out my podcast, also called Words Are Vibrations. And I'm working with one-on-one with clients for creative expression, building the brand, creating content, launching projects. So I'd love to hear from some people around that as well, and meet some of these amazing listeners.
I love that, dude. Yeah, thank you for sharing and using your voice. I celebrate that. Using your voice and being physically seen. Really cool. Dude, I know we just like scratched the surface, but it was really cool like to hear about the different like creative ways and like the journey and just like the letting go. There's lots of nuggets in here. And like when you were saying it, I was like, oh, that's Instagram reel. I was like, remember that one.
I appreciate it. Yeah, this was fun. This was an easy conversation. So thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.